Imagine this, 73 BC. Rome, the mighty republic, facing its only nightmare. And it wore shackles. A single breakout from a gladiator school, right? But that wasn't just a prison break, it exploded into an army of tens of thousands, marching the length of Italy, threatening to shatter the republic before any foreign enemy ever could. How in the world do you even begin to stop something like that? Rome's initial moves were, frankly, a joke, until their Senate finally dusted off a playbook so utterly ruthless, it ensured no slave uprising would ever truly scare them again. Section 1. The underestimation. Rome's opening move? Pure pride. Instead of dispatching their formidable legions, they cobbled together a paltry 4,000 militia under praetor Gaius Claudius Glober, basically an armed neighborhood watch. Slaves, you see, weren't considered soldiers, they were property. So, a quick siege on the slopes of Mount Vesuvius felt like it should be an easy mop-up. But Spartacus's men, resourceful as they were, waited for the cloak of night. They ingeniously wove vines into ropes, scaled down an unguarded cliff face, and struck the Roman camp from behind in a stunning display of tactical brilliance. The Romans were caught completely off guard. Weeks later, under Publius Varinius, it was the same humiliating story. Rain-soaked militia trudged uphill, only for the rebels to charge downhill, leaving Roman gear strewn across the battlefield. Two swift, crushing defeats, two utterly embarrassing lessons. Underestimating slaves was not just costly, it was actively bleeding Rome's reputation dry. Section 2. The escalation. By this point, the rebellion wasn't just big, it had ballooned past 70,000, a terrifying force. The senators finally dropped the amateur hour. They knew they needed serious money and serious brutality. Enter Marcus Licinius Crassus, the richest man in Rome, tasked with bankrolling and leading a proper war. He arrived with 8 full legions, roughly 40,000 seasoned professionals, and a brutally simple brief: erase this problem from existence. His first order of business wasn't even fighting Spartacus, it was restoring absolute terror within his own ranks. After a detachment shamefully retreated, Crassus didn't just reprimand them. He revived the ancient, horrifying practice of decimation. Every 10th man in the guilty cohort was literally beaten to death by his own comrades. It was a savage, almost unthinkable act, but suddenly, Roman discipline, which had been so shaky, snapped back into an iron grip. Section 3. The containment wall. Crassus's real genius, his absolute masterstroke, wasn't found in open battle, but in cold, hard logistics. He relentlessly chased Spartacus's forces all the way to the very toe of Italy, and then, he slammed down a truly monumental 60-kilometer ditch and wall barrier right across the Rhegium Isthmus. Imagine this, it was complete with watchtowers and forts every few hundred meters, an engineering marvel of containment. From the sea, that wall looked like a jagged scar across the land, but from inside the slave camp, it must have looked like an impenetrable prison gate. Trapped between these formidable fortifications and the harsh onset of winter, the rebels began to rapidly lose time, precious food supplies, and vital allies. Spartacus, ever the defiant leader, desperately tried to winter punch through this iron cordon. He failed, losing thousands, and in a chilling act of his own, even crucified a Roman prisoner in no man's land, a grim attempt to harden his men's flagging morale. But still, the wall held firm, and Rome's noose tightened, inexorably. Section 4. The intelligence war. Now, the conflict truly became a game of cloak and dagger, a brutal intelligence war. Spartacus, ever the strategist, tried to outmaneuver Crassus by bribing Cilician pirates for passage to Sicily, hoping to ignite a devastating second island revolt. But Crassus, always a step ahead, simply outbid him. The pirate ships, their pockets heavier with Roman gold, sailed off empty, cruelly stranding the rebels and dashing their hopes of escape. On land, Roman scouts were everywhere, shadowing every goat path. Patrols ruthlessly intercepted foragers, cutting off vital supplies. And clever misinformation campaigns spread rumors of weak points in the Roman lines that were, in fact, cleverly laid killing fields. Desperation, fueled by starvation and dashed hopes, began to fracture the slave army itself. Crixus, one of Spartacus's key lieutenants, took a splinter group north, only to be ruthlessly cornered and destroyed. It was textbook divide and conquer, executed with chilling precision. Section 5, The Final Battle. In 71 BC, with options dwindling and his forces starving, Spartacus finally wheeled his desperate army towards Crassus for the ultimate, do-or-die clash. The Roman war machine was a sight to behold. Legionaries locked shields in their classic three-line checkerboard formation, an impenetrable wall of steel. Auxiliaries rained down a deadly hail of javelins, while cavalry units expertly swept the flanks, preventing any escape. When the rebel lines inevitably buckled, Crassus, unlike his less prepared predecessors, committed his strategic reserve, a tactical move earlier Roman commanders seemed to have completely forgotten existed, sealing every single gap, preventing any breakthrough. The rebel ranks, battered and broken, finally collapsed. Spartacus himself, fighting to the very end, was cut down in the chaotic crush, his body never definitively identified. 6,000 desperate prisoners were taken alive that day, their fate already sealed. Section 6, The Psychological Aftershock. But victory alone wasn't enough for Rome, they needed a terrifying, undeniable billboard, a brutal message etched into the very landscape. Crassus ordered the entire Appian Way, from Capua all the way to Rome, to be lined with crosses, one every 40 meters, stretching for hundreds of kilometers. 6,000 crucified rebels, their bodies left to rot for months, a ghastly, silent warning. Every traveler, every slave, every merchant passing by saw exactly what awaited them at the bitter end of a rebellion. The Senate, of course, spun it as justice. Everyone else, deep down, knew it was pure, unadulterated terror. And you know what? It worked. No large-scale slave war ever troubled Italy again after that. The message was received, loud and clear. If you're into stories where brilliant strategy collides with the brutal, uncompromising side of history, then seriously, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. We've got plenty more tales from Rome, and beyond, waiting for you. See you in our next video. So, the Roman Empire didn't just defeat Spartacus, they engineered an absolutely chilling spectacle of force. It was discipline enforced by decimation, containment achieved by an insurmountable wall, victory secured through utter annihilation, and deterrence stamped into the public consciousness by mass crucifixion. These four brutal moves weren't just random acts, they formed a terrifying playbook that later emperors kept very, very handy whenever the bottom rung of society dared to dream of rising up. Rome's true secret wasn't merely superior steel or overwhelming numbers, it was the cold, calculated understanding that fear, expertly advertised and brutally delivered, could do most of their fighting for them. It was a lesson the world wouldn't soon forget.